Challenges, localization and technology. Now, when we want to bring in local culture and local languages in technology, we face a number of challenges. And we will first of all look at the nature of localization. When we talk about localization, Dr. Rahman argues that there are two types of localization in terms of technology. One can talk about linguistic localization, which is a simple use of a different language in the computer programming, and the other can be cultural localization, which means making computer programs that are sensitive to the needs of a given context. So, when we talk about linguistic localization, what do we mean? So, as we said before, we mean that we are now then using a local language like Urdu in computer programming. Now, this has taken place, and you can find certain programs in which Urdu is being used instead of English, although in several mainstream programs like the emails, you still have to stick to English language. Now, the task was very challenging when Urdu was to be used as a local language in the computer technology, because Urdu has different shapes. Not only does it have different shapes, but those different shapes change every time we use different alphabets together to form a word. Not only that, they were of different heights. So all of this was a challenging task, and Dr. Rahman talks about those challenging tasks in detail in the article on localization in technology. Now, in the linguistic localization, when we talk about Urdu, one has to keep in mind that some progress might have been made in terms of Sindhi in developing computer programs, but otherwise there has been no introduction of other regional languages in computer programming. So this means that while the dominant languages might have some space in technology, which is an important part of our daily lives now, the local languages and the speakers of the local languages still are not able to access the information on internet in their own languages. And Dr. Tariq Rahman argues, and we all know also, that now computer-based translation is possible. There are several apps for it. So it is not that that work is not being done in the world regarding this. We need to see that within the context of Pakistan, are we also making such facility available to our local population so that they are able to use information, retrieve information, and sort of apply these to their own lives? That is the question. So we are saying localization is possible. Dominant languages like Urdu and Sindhi, which is being promoted also, is very much there, but there are a large number of local languages that are still not there in the space of technology. Apart from simple linguistic localization, there is also this aspect of cultural localization. Now, what do we mean by that? We mean that when we put the type of language out there, that language has to be culturally sensitive. So, by culturally sensitive, we would mean that if you use a language in a given culture in a specific way, then the use of that language in the computer programming must also reflect those things. So the problem is that usually people involved over there, And from where the experts also learn are the hackers. Now, what the hackers do is they are actually very intelligent rebels. So you would see that the programs that they develop and the language that they use in these programs then is a language which does not follow the norms of social interaction within the given society. So you will see the spellings are different. You will see that the norms of addressing someone might be very different. So gradually, because of the influence of these digital norms, they somehow lead to some sort of resentment later on in local cultures where the technology sort of permeates. So although technology gives this pseudo sense of modernization, and it intersects and it sort of like challenges the given linguistic norms, making people believe that the existing linguistic norms of complimenting each other or addressing somebody are obsolete. That might not be the case, and at times it might lead people to move away uh, from these norms and actually think that technology is doing something not very helpful to the way language is actually being used in the society. So, another important thing to keep in mind is that computerization, and I totally agree, gives a false sense of power and speed. And what it does is it somehow looks down upon diligence, the forming of the letters, this perseverance that is needed to do something in actual life, and that is somehow does not match with the computer skill or the power and the speed with which a computer does something. For instance, if you're painting something, so look at the time and effort and the mixing of the colors and the experimenting that is needed, the whole process of knowledge building that goes on when you paint a picture actually. And then look at this computer program where you can just pick on some shades and quickly click on one after the other, and the picture gets painted in less than 3 minutes. So this is what we are talking about. So sometimes the technology actually makes it sort of difficult for people to value the norms they are following. So information and skill rather than the processes of knowledge creation become more important, and this should be addressed in the computer programs made for the local population. Now, coming back to this linguistic localization, and that was the main focus of what we were trying to cover, is that when only dominant languages are being used in computer programming, then the elite power is reinforced. That is, this power is of two kinds. For instance, one type of power is tangible. So, by knowing a language that is actually existing in the technology or computer programming, people are able to access it, people are able to use it, and then they also have access to different types of jobs, businesses, all the several things that can lead to your social mobility, the consume. So there is a lot of gratification over there. And then we move on to power that is intangible and which is no less important. So intangible would mean that you cannot actually see it, but it is very much there. So this intangible aspect of power is a power that it gives you a control over the dissemination of ideas, not only yours but also others. So you can say on social media what you want to say. You can also reply to other people, but at the same time, what you're doing is that you are suppressing the voice of those who are not able to access the media because there is no technology available to them who use local languages to say what they want to say. So localization in computer programming is important to restore people's voices, to increase access and participation, and to support socio-economic mobility, and we'll talk about it a little bit more.